This is an open letter to the Sane Society. Salute. Years ago, I was listening to this program once in detail of how the British police have been able to recover stolen cars fast. And this detailed program was about the fact that they literally use the satellite images that is taken within short intervals every 5 seconds or 10 seconds by series of different satellites that are covering England all over. By all these, they take so much pictures. They were taking so much pictures from their own little island that they had a above view picture of every inch of the British island every 5 seconds. Above ground picture of every inch of British island every 5 seconds. All over. So what the British police started doing with the use of some simple form of AI was that I'm talking about at least 10 years ago. They were able to go to the location where that car was last parked by the owner's admission, go find the car, that above image from that location. It was so easy. At that date that the owner says it was there, they get that image and then follow that car through the city for the next 7 days, or at least for the next 24 hours, follow these consecutive pictures which forms a video. So if you speed it up, you literally, the AI can give you a video, because they have if there is a picture every 5 seconds over your head. So they were able to literally speed up the detection. The idea is the AI picks up the digital the shape of the above ground image of the car that's supposedly stolen. They take that image and they tell the system to follow that image of the top of the car, the color, the shape, the texture, the imperfections, what forms the what basically becomes the digital or visual footprint of that car, or better yet, visual roof print of that car was detected and followed with the help of AI for at least 24 hours. So if the earlier they contacted the police as, hey, my car is stolen, that the better chances were of them recovering the car, because I would just follow. It wouldn't even be faster. It would. So for any length of period of time, that if they could save the images of their whole island, the farther back they could find the stolen items, stolen cars. And I have a feeling they have been continuously adding to the storage space. So the British can find any vehicle top that they want in England and follow its history for the last 10 years at least that we know of. I'm telling you this because it's been 10-15 years, so I have a feeling that its system has become more sophisticated to the point that not only they're having the visual coverage of their own land, they're also having the visual coverage of other people's lands. So I have had a feeling about this for some time now, that this is how the technology, how they're using the technology to pick off their internet targets through this technology. Let's say in 10 years the system has got more, they can zoom better, let's just say they can zoom better, and they can get every imperfection of a person's visual footprint from above, and sort of like how all little details on top of everybody's head, based on, you know, down to the how many white hairs and how many black hairs, how many spots, is all the imperfection. That visual footprint is absorbed by a very strong lens, let's put it this way, and saved on a hard drive on Earth. So now basically, if you expand that technology 10 years, what they have now, that's why one of the reasons they can, I believe, I could be wrong, I believe they are at the point in which they have a visual footprint of or above dimension, or dimension from the visual footprint of what they can get from a very strong satellite camera. So what why I'm referring to this is because here is what happens. For example, the last time the Iranian president met with Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan, and on his way back, the president of Iran, just his helicopter, not other, there were apparently 3 helicopters, but the main helicopter, which was carrying all of the main ones, you know, the foreign minister and president, that one dropped out of sky, apparently. So you see, okay, what do these have in common? These were this they know what the above image of Aliyev is, because as soon as they can lock you in on a point on Earth that this visual image of this specific above ground image match it, who does it match, and as soon as I can put a name on the above ground image, they can continuously have pictures of that image moving around the board on Earth. They just need a confirmation that this digital footprint that we got from an above ground image of this person in details, this put a name to the shape. That's why there's, you know, and to do that with high-ranking officials, what they do is basically they set up a meeting between somebody who's on their side. For example, President of Azerbaijan comes and he has to shake the hand of a president. The Iranians cannot send just their foreign minister. So, and the Iranians say, yeah, of course, we're going to come. Presidents only meet presidents. You know, blow some smoke up their ass. And so, apparently, the president of Azerbaijan met president of Iran on the Iranian border to open some kind of a dam, whose probably was the Azerbaijani's idea to begin with. And a lot of Uncle Sam's money probably was involved in building the dam. So the occasion comes as to opening of this dam. So probably the Azeri side, the people of Aliyev, invite the Iranian president, hey, come on, open the dam with us, with our president. So the Iranians go without actually knowing that this technology exists, in my view. So Aliyev shakes hands with the president of Iran, and at that point in time, the computer can tag the above ground image of the president of Iran and put a name to the shape of above image, overhead image. And shortly after, apparently the Iranians really thought really hard and said, okay, let's have 3 identical looking helicopters so they won't be able to track who went into which helicopter, and that would be great. But I have a feeling they don't understand that they follow the visual they can follow the visual from then on and strike exactly on the helicopter that specific overhead images were going to, and have a surgical hit with a lot of these air-to-air missiles that have no footprint because they're made out of cardboard and explosives. So when the whole thing explode in midair, hit something, that thing obviously drops out of sky, but also there's no evidence left behind from the missile because it was made of cardboard mostly. Salute. And then I have a feeling the same thing happened after the visit from the Saudi royal Saudi defense minister. The Saudi defense minister basically met exactly all the top leadership of Iranian military on his recent visit to Iran. The Saudi defense minister, a young kid from fucking somebody's baby, had become, from the Saudi family, somebody's baby from the Saudi family had suddenly became a defense minister. But, Saudi defense minister is basically brings in the tea for the NATO defense forces on the ground. The Saudi defense minister's sole job is, handing out tea to white people, to white soldiers. That's the job of Saudi defense minister. So they told him that, you go, you have to just make sure we have some kind of a visual. Maybe you have this button in your pocket that when you shake this guy's hand, you press this button, and when you shake that guy's hand, you press the same button. So, we know exactly whose visual above ground footprint matches whom. So, so we can put a name to a visual image of that person's overhead perspective has. We put a name to an image, and then we can follow that person. All we have to do is follow that person for 24 hours. I.e., the Israeli defense minister brings some tea to Iran and gives the Iranians some tea, and at the same time, all he has to do is tag the top. Of course, the Iranians' top leadership has to shake his hand. They can't send anybody else's in their place. They want to. They're the leadership, so they want to shake hands because they represent. So the Saudis send this guy, and the guy goes in and shakes the leadership's hand out in the open, military parade and this and that and the other, correct? Honorary parade. Some soldiers come around and dip their head and lift their toes, but the whole idea is the proximity is reduced to 12 inches, a foot, between their own guy who's above, above perspective visuals they already have on the computer. That would be the Arab defense minister. And the above ground visual image of the guys they want, the targets. That would be the leadership, whoever this guy shakes hands with or shakes paw with. So, and then the Saudi defense minister leaves, and the overhead satellites that are giving the same visuals as that old program, 100 times better, 1,000 times better, and also over other people's land. You have your investigative satellites not only over your land, but also in every other inch of this fucking planet. So you're covering everyone, down to how they look like from above ground. Sometimes you need confirmation. Sometimes you need confirmation. You need somebody to recently. Here's what happened. The Saudi defense minister went in, shook hands of these people that he first touched, and every time he shook an hand, he pushed a button, so the system picked up that, okay, was able to put an image to a name. Then all the system had to do is follow these images that it has on the ground on Earth for 24 hours. Because in 24 hours, when they follow this video or put all these images together and form a video, the above ground images will tell you exactly what space that person lives. Basically, where the fuck does he sleep at night? So that's the above ground image. Where does he sleep at night? Where does he spend 10 hours? Where does this image disappear to for 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, going and eating and sleeping, and the time that he spends at home. So they figure out that this above ground image of this person with now this name that we have, this is spent like 10 hours in this location. Now all they have to do is, if it's a single story house, they don't even need any investigation, and done. They can literally aim for the bedroom of that person, because they know they just have to figure out where in this building is the bedroom. And I think one of the reasons that recently I've noticed that the leader of China does these formalities of meeting the foreign guests under a roof. I've noticed that I haven't seen any, basically every official visit recently with regards to China I've seen it takes place under a roof. I guess that's a precaution that they don't want their group of leadership to be marked with above ground cameras on satellites and followed for 24 hours to know the location of their main habitat. So because that's apparently nobody can pick up these whatever means they kind of planes they fly. It's apparently not detectable. And or like recently they said maybe the Israelis are using short range drones from within Iran. Still, that aspect of marking the above ground image, I think, is the main function of the military industrial complex. The industrial complex is the one that produces both the image and puts the name to an image, and then has the ammunition to use to eliminate that image. And if for example, if it's a single story building, that's no problem. They just have to locate where is the bedroom. And if it's and besides, if I don't think you can hit the bedroom and the living room would be safe. They just hit the living room, and anything within that range has passed away afterwards. So, and if it's a high rise, they may need some work on the ground, so a few people on the ground to just make sure which floor does this high rise this motherfucker lives in. And then, they strike it with one of these, I guess, either local drone that was smuggled in or sophisticated F-35 missile. Or, B-1 and B-2 and B-3 and B-4 and B-5. And the problem is that, yes, technology is always there. But, the willingness to use the technology has always been who you have as a leader. The technologies always can be improved and made better. And unfortunately, to my, die-hard democratic friends who are not democratic with a big D, those who hooray for democracy, the problem is that, the problem with democracy is the problem I had with my last girlfriend. She loved gangsters and gangster movies. And women in general get a thrill out of dangerous things because there is a hormonal thing that women like to feel. So with dangerous men in dangerous situation, once in a while women would like to be part of, because that gets them going. And this average woman is also your average Joe. That, with Joe who doesn't want to be a part of a gang? All the Joes I know. What is a country? It's a big gang that a group of people have expressed allegiance to. All countries are like that. A country is a group of people, a tribe, a group of people who have expressed allegiance toward each other. That's a tribe. And, as you can see, a lot of white people are now very unsure of their tribe, because they see a lot of brown people and black people in their tribe, and they're like, we didn't sign up for this, what the fuck? So they're trying to kick out the white, black and brown people out of their southern border and out of their own borders, but at the same time they also are okay with brown and black people being run out of their own home countries. Sort of like brown and black people should not be coming to our little island here and or big island here, and brown and black people should also move out of their own native lands over there, whether by expulsion or by fear. The Israelis are trying to empty the Middle East, apparently into Europe. I like to tell the Germans that you didn't put up with the Ashkenazi. Now you have to put up with Arabs. I'm not sure if Europeans, want anything in this deal. You didn't put up with the Ashkenazi, and now the Ashkenazi have brought you Arabs. Anyway, they have gone to Arabs and pushed the Arabs out into Europe. Anyway. Now, the problem is that a lot of people, men and women, enjoy too much this idea of, you know, you heard those terms that they refer to, you know, daddy's home and daddy's taking out the belt. That's the kind of infatuation that people have with strong leaders, as my girlfriend had with regards to mafia and mafia movies, and oh god. So the idea is that, you know, the little man like myself needs to feel protected. And, you know, for years now, invasion into other countries and bombing of other countries have been translated for the common man as protection. We are hitting them, or they are hitting them on our behalf for our protection. It's sort of like, dude, if you're hitting them or providing weapons for somebody to hit them in their own homeland, that's no longer called a protection. You protect your own self. You can't, you know, go into other people's bedroom and say, hey, I'm here to protect myself. Start beating on the woman's husband, and say, I'm here to protect myself. And besides, your pussy is mine. That's the whole thing. Imagine somebody going to somebody's house, bedroom, start beating the man, and then telling the woman, but by the way, that pussy is mine, not his, your husband's. That's exactly what's happening. It's basically white people of Anglo-Saxon origin have decided for past couple of hundred years now. When I say white people of Anglo-Saxon origins, that basically includes the ruling class of North America as well. White people of Anglo-Saxon origin that makes up the ruling class of Europe and North America. Imagine, you know, the British fucking island is the, you know, banking capital of Europe, or what remains of it. New York is the banking capital of the world. That's the, you know, Anglo-Saxon version that's a version in which Anglo-Saxons are on top. They print money, and with that money buy resources to make weapons to go and then bring peace and prosperity. Salute. Bring peace and prosperity across the world with those weapons. I'm not sure what kind of peace and prosperity can be achieved with weapons, but there we have it. And the idea is that you have the military industrial complex, which acts as sort of like a very sophisticated sidearm. Military industrial complex makes a very sophisticated sidearm. That's all it does. At its height of performance, military industrial complex is a very top of the line Colt or Glock, if you will. A sidearm of sorts. That's military industrial complex. The problem is, if you put the sidearm on George W. Bush, on Biden, on Obama, on Clinton, on Trump, on George Sr., Reagan, Kennedy, Nixon, these guys were all gangsters, more or less. They're all gangsters. That's how they reach the top of their field. You know, with the gangster mentality, because people are made to be afraid, and afraid people like to have daddy in charge as a big gangster to protect them. The main problem is these people are being made to fear artificially. Sort of like, them motherfuckers over there, they're bad, they're coming to get us. How? They don't even have a fucking boat. Imagine selling colonialism to the Europeans by telling them, if we don't go colonize Africa, they're going to come and colonize Europe. While we know that at the time that the Europeans were able to build bigger ships, the Africans didn't need see any need to venture out into the sea, because they weren't living in an island like the British. They were living in a vast African continent. Resources were available, whatever. It wasn't. It's a lot of Africa is very lush and productive, and they really didn't ever, with a lot of disease. So natural diseases that spreads in usually warm and humid climates. Warm and humid climates have more diseases. So Africa has two extremes of very dry and very warm and humid. So at this time in their timeline, they weren't very populated with large cities, and the sparse population was able to live on subsistence farming forever. So the British, imagine the British selling this idea to their citizens while they were trying to colonize Africa, that if we don't go and colonize Africa, they will come and colonize us. It's the same message that George W. Bush had. It's like, if we don't go confront them over there, they will come and attack us over here. Dude, the reason they had to hijack planes is because they don't have the technology to attack here. All you had to do was watch your planes a little. If that was the case, all you had to do is watch your planes a little more, and more security at the airports. That's all you had to do. You didn't have to, go and try to dry the Kanat at the source. You don't really have to. You can put a dam and hold the Kanat's water in a big puddle without actually having, put up security around your space. But that's the thing. Again, the boys in Wall Street who want more and more money from more and more resources and markets, they also love these gangsters. And the media draws a very negative picture of the recent unfriendly country that basically was not paying their dues, and the population votes for a new gangster, to go and take office and try to extort from all those places that are not paying. I mean, anything more gangster than what recently President Trump said, not gangster in a good way, gangster in a bad way. What he said recently, he said, they're ripping us off. I'm sorry, the country that prints the world reserve currency, that has been kicking ass across the planet, from West Asia to East Asia to Africa to South America, the country that has picking ass without bothering to take names all across the planet, making money while doing it, printing their own money and forcing everybody to use that money, this Lord turns to other people and say, these motherfuckers are ripping us off. Can you imagine that? The only way that can happen is if that person is a gangster. He believes your pants is not actually your pants is my pants. I'm allowing you to wear your pants, i.e. your pants is actually my pants. Everybody's pants is actually my pants. I'm allowing them to wear my pants around for a fee. That's what a gangster does. It says, I am allowed this amount for a fee, protection from me. Protection money. Now they're going even after India and say, why is India buying weapons from Russia? They should be buying weapons from us. I.e., you have to be paying protection money to us, motherfuckers. Our second ladies in the end, we are giving you high honors. So why aren't you on our side, motherfucker? Vivek actually, found his way to the presidential election. Salute. All that did was a show to, say that, yeah, we do also have an Indian. Why aren't you our side? The whole idea between, trying to treat Arabs or Muslims in England and give them some rights is foreign policy, because we want Pakistan on our side, we want India on our side, we want Saudi Arabia on our side, we want all these Arab shitty countries that are being made homeless by Israel. We want them on our side as well. So in our country, because this is politics, we want everybody in our camp. So that means if we have to let Arabs run half of Europe, because I guess it's in the interest of the rulers, just like letting Israel Absolute. Just like letting Israel run the Middle East. Well, is it in the Middle Eastern's interest for Israel, a white colony of Europeans, running the Middle East? Is this does this favor the locals? I guess, as long as Saudi Arabia feels the Arabia that belongs to the Saud family, as long as Saud family feels protected and in charge, they don't mind, sleeping with the white boys, as long as, they're protected. And, their culture is, the Arab culture is not that that refined, or else they would have had a great presence in the world history. Because they don't have a great presence in the world history, beside the religion that came and spread, Arabs don't have much of an influence in the world history, but the religion that came out of Saudi Arabia had a lot of influence over the Middle East. But so Arabs are not very refined, especially the Arabs who reside on the lower portions of Arabian Peninsula. And that's not a downput. That's a just observation of what has been. And one of the reasons that Islam looks a lot like the Amish religion is that it's a purer form of the whole concept of Islam. Pure in the sense that Amish are more pure Christians than secular Christians. So my point is this, that the military-industrial complex by itself, it just forms a very sophisticated sidearm. But the problem with these the die-hard democracy fans is that every time you're providing the sidearm and technology, the masses like gangsters. And surprise, surprise, that on the night of that a gangster tells a hitman to make a hit, on that night, the guy Donald Trump, salute President Trump. He sees himself as a gangster. And a lot of other people sees him as a gangster. And that's the problem, that when you give the military-industrial complex to a gangster, and so was Biden. Again, even Harris, if she was elected, she was, again, I've said this before, she was a gangster, a gangster with a vagina. She was a gangster. And the whole mentality, because in a democracy, the average man wants to feel protected. That's in general, the average man wants to be protected, but then But once you give the choice to the average man that they pick whoever they feel can protect them better, they often vote for the guy who's the bigger gangster. Another reason why very few women have ever reached the top in a democracy, because the average population has to feel like it wants to be protected by gangster. They like gangster. They like the whole macho thing. Because that gives them assurance. But then, so every time a gangster is chosen with the gangster mentality of, I gotta have more control over the board. Which gangster do you know who, if they get a upper hand with technology, not wanting to get a bigger portion of the board, bigger territory? Which gangster do you know who's happy with their territory? This is from old gangster movies to real international affair, where the British are literally providing arms to the gangsters in Ukraine to shoot into Russia. Sort of like, we can't shoot these missiles from London into Moscow. Here, Ukraine, why don't you shoot it from Kiev into Moscow? And they're giving the same missiles. Basically, they're telling the Arabs, we cannot shoot these missiles from London into Gaza, but we can, give these missiles to Israel, and Israelis have the right to shoot these missiles into Gaza and Tehran and Baghdad and wherever else they feel like it. I'm sorry, why don't you just, so Israel has become a cause for you to use your weapons to bomb the Arabs and co. The Arabs don't agree. Let's put it this way. The Arabs, we feel we have the right to shoot from this, not from London. Don't come and disrupt and this is the thing with the whole internal security business, is that, oh no, we have the right, the white people have the right to go over there, put up settlements, and then in the name of protecting and expanding those settlements, they have the right to shoot a missile into your kitchen. But don't ever think of doing that in London, Paris, because that would be terrorism. Just think of a fictitious character who literally had his kitchen blown up with his mother in it, blown up in Gaza or Tehran, and now and imagine that kid goes to London, and then imagine he finds a missile by magic and puts it in somebody's kitchen. That would be terrorism. Sort of like, no, you don't have the right to do this act in London, but we have the perfect right to do that act in all over the Middle East because you're not listening. I mean, if you keep telling everybody that they have to get on their hands and knees, you wonder why they're not listening. Because they don't want to get fucked. That's why they're not getting on their hands and knees. But the gangster is saying that all gangsters, from Clinton to Obama to Biden to Trump to Nixon to Ford, all gangsters. Because everybody who doesn't like a good gangster. Who doesn't? I myself have watched Godfather multiple times. Everybody likes it, and the more insecure you feel, the more you enjoy watching somebody bash the shit out of somebody else. The more you enjoy the whole gangster mentality, the more you feel insecure. So again, as I said, Mr. Trump feels like a gangster, enjoys to feel like a gangster. Come on, he's been in New York. He lived in New York all his life, so pretty much, I would say he has idealized that lifestyle. So he images himself after that lifestyle. And he has so, and he didn't mind, rubbing shoulders with all kinds of gangsters. That's what people in power appreciates, and I want to be in power, so I do what people in power do. And that's, rubbing shoulders with gangsters, because that's a good thing. Gangsters are good. That's Hollywood for you. Salute. People under the protection of gangsters feel good, but are they actually really good? Let me put it this way. The gangsters in Washington actually have been putting more money towards their sidearms, more sophisticated weapons and technology, as I imagine, to make strike kills. So much money and so much technology is used to make surgical kills around the planet. That Malaysian airliner, that wasn't, nobody found anything of it, and their images came out, it disappeared. We don't know what happened. But again, the money is there for the technology, fine, but you keep picking gangsters and putting them in charge because based on what democracy is and the preferences of the average man that also can be manipulated and scared out of their skin. There's every chance that scared people always will pick the biggest gangster that they feel safe with. And if the gangster keeps saying that people have wronged us, everybody has ripped us off. Up to now, it was apparently the Afghans had ripped white people off, and Afghans are living in shit, and Mr. Trump is saying they have been ripping us off. India, they're living in shit, and apparently the Indians are ripping us off. And I'm thinking to myself, Mexico is ripping us off. This is what Mr. Trump is saying. Mexico is ripping us off. I'm sorry, they're living in shit. Not all of the country, but at least half the country is living in shit. Why do you think they like to live in, they're going to live in shit in Los Angeles if the shit was any better in Mexico? It's not better in Mexico, so they'd rather live in shit in Los Angeles. My point is this, that things are not better over there. So how can they be ripping the almighty, Al Capones that find their way into the White House? Who would ever try to rip off Al Capone? And nobody is ripping off Al Capone. It's just Al Capone finds it easy to attack everybody by accusing everybody of being a ripoff. If Al Capone can say everybody has been ripping me off, Al Capone gives himself the right to shoot everybody that he thinks is not paying their fair share. Ring any bell? I'm sorry, but Mr. John Stewart in specific, this is what democracy brings you. Average man likes gangsters. Average man can be manipulated a lot by media to feel fearful. In which case, they every time they vote for the biggest gangster, the person that they feel more safe with. And who's that? Somebody who behaves in a gangster faction and tries to calm everybody down that I am in control. Only I can fix it. Rings any bell? So no, Mr. John Stewart, this is democracy by design and a little media manipulation. When I say media manipulation, I'm saying that the same media manipulation and the chit chat behind the latrines was the media back in the Roman days. So based on the media, whether it be at Fox News or behind the latrines in Rome, the chit chat behind the latrines is always, is the media. And it's always scared people start talking behind the latrines because they have the scariest news possible. That's the media. And now have you been using Fox and Co to scare the shit out of everybody all the time? And who do we need? A big gangster in charge to show them, to prevent them from ripping us off. Are they ripping you off? Well, let's just say they're not paying their fair share. Should they be paying you? Yes, because this is our territory. They should disarm and start paying, period. Disarm first. This is what the Anglo-Saxon white 10% in charge of the collective West, NATO. This is what they say. Everybody else in this planet, their leaders have to agree to pay us and disarm. Whichever order do you want? Either you pay and disarm, or disarm and pay. Whatever order you want, or we disarm you, then force you to pay. And this is for those people who think that, paying Uncle Sam pays off. Yeah, fuck. The Puerto Ricans have been paying Uncle Sam up the ass for 80 years. Hasn't paid off. The average people of Saudi Arabia, 40% are living below the poverty line. So 40% of Saudi Arabia is living below the poverty line. So being a friend of, Uncle Sam's managers, or NATO, or white people in general, or the Anglo-Saxon Franco in general, being a friend of them that hasn't really paid off for those friends, for the majority of the population of those friends. They have just been spared being bombed. Sort of like, if you agree to live in the Stone Age, we will not send you to the Stone Age. This is what they have done to Saudi Arabia, to Jordan, to Egypt. What they're telling Egyptian leadership, that if you agree to live in the Stone Age, so our colony here would not feel threatened by you, if you agree to live in the Stone Age, because technologically Egyptians have been forced to live in the Stone Age because they are not allowed to develop any technology, because apparently any of these cocksucking natives, if they develop or attain technology, it's a threat to our little colony called Israel, of white people called Israel. Any of these native population, they have to either agree to live in the Stone Age, or if, like the Iranians, they want to come out of the Stone Age, we're going to bomb them back to the Stone Age. You all motherfuckers, you all have to live in the Stone Age. Don't try to crawl out of the Stone Age, because we're going to bomb you back into the Stone Age. Because we are white people, we want to be on top. We are the 10%, the cream of the white societies. The whole upper echelon of the British Island, the whole upper echelon of the French, which are running Macron. Macron is a technocrat who was, looked good in front of cameras, and the oligarchy of the French oligarchy decided to, run him for president. The same thing has happened in Germany. The same thing has happened, Keir Starmer, I wouldn't give him the job of walking a fucking dog, but he's a tool for the operation around of the British society to enforce their will. All these rulers are gangsters, are hitmen, are tools of the real ruling class. And you can tell Mr. Trump even enjoys the parts of being the gangster. I mean, how good do you think he feels about himself, holding hands with his trophy wife, going to the theater, which he probably doesn't enjoy, going to a theater, watching a show while, the Iranian targets get hit with the latest sidearms that money can buy. That's a reminiscence of the highlight of the Godfather drama was when the least expected son does the most exquisite hit on all the heads of families in New York and leaves town for a new life, a new destination. Trump goes to the theater, feels like one of the Corleones in the night that is, he knows the big hits are taking place. Mr. Netanyahu, like another big hit man, goes to Greece, probably attending a show, a theater for himself also in the Greece. And they actually feel that they're protecting their public, their interests. But it's not the interest of, and the media is selling this idea of hitting more people and breaking more kneecaps somehow helps my mailman in his bottom line. It's sort of like, no, we are breaking their kneecaps because you're going to get another zero at the end of your check. Well, because of inflation probably, but that inflation, that blowing kneecaps across the planet costs a lot of money. And apparently the Israelis have become an instrument of breaking people's kneecap on the other side of the planet. Apparently it's a thing they picked up while they were living with the Germans. But the Ashkenazi in their own right have had a great criminal history in terms of real godfathers, real capos, or whatever they call themselves. A lot of them have been Ashkenazis. So Ashkenazis have a lot of frustration in them, and they don't mind expressing it at the expense of other people. And I guess that's understandable, because the reason for frustration has been they're being pushed around by other European races, other white people in Europe. But the problems, in general, the problems are Europeans or people of European origin, because it's not just the Ashkenazi they kicked around. Now they're kicking around the Arabs with the help of the Ashkenazi. Now the Europeans, the white people, the Anglo-Saxons, the 10% in charge, are kicking around the Iranians with the help of Ashkenazi. If the Ashkenazis were there, great, thank you very much. But Ashkenazis have become a tool of white people, the 10% white people who are in charge. They pick different tools. In Vietnam, they had the Hmong. That's a tribe of Vietnamese. Like the Ashkenazi Hmong are a tribe of Vietnamese. In Vietnam land, there's a tribe was a tribe called Hmong that the white people went in and paid them off and helped them and assisted them in every way they could. So they have these people fighting on their behalf. The natives, the other Vietnamese. The same thing with Israel, except that Israelis are not even local. It's not like a tribe of locals that they have decided, the Anglo-Saxons have decided to hire to do some hits in West Asia. The Israelis, the Ashkenazi are not even local. They're brought over from Europe, and the mother of all gangster places, Brooklyn, New York. These Ashkenazi gangsters were brought in from Brooklyn and France and Germany and Russia, and they're in the corner of West Asia, and they're bashing the natives with weapons that were provided by other white people from Europe and North America. And then every time the public goes for the person that makes us feel safest. This is democracy. Who makes me feel safest is a dictator. Not a well, eventually you're going to have a dictator, but a gangster. And gangsters really, do you know any gangster who was willing to give up power peacefully? And in a way, your ex-gangsters, the ex-presidents, have also total immunity. Have you noticed that they can pardon other people, they can pardon themselves, they can pardon each other? There are pictures of Mr. Clinton with a whole bunch of girls, individually, one by one, over the internet. But nobody touches Mr. Bill Clinton because he's an ex-gangster, he's an ex-don. You can't touch an ex-don. That would be sacrilege. So democracy is not exactly what you think it is. Democracy eventually becomes pick your favorite gangster to help you feel safe. Would you like a Mrs. Gangster or would you like a Mr. Gangster? And the military-industrial complex provides top-of-the-line technology. And with targeted killings, and the idea behind it is basically, we actually don't have to attack the country. We send it to the Stone Age and kill their leadership that is holding the shit together, and hopefully it just falls apart and becomes like Libya. That's the ultimate goal. And we keep it like that in the Stone Age. I'm sorry. Here's the thing, Mr. John Stewart. You think with your democracy the world is going to a better place? Your democracies keep dismantling civilizations and sending them back to Stone Age. Your democracies keep bringing disorder to where there is order. Order comes with leadership. You don't have leadership, you don't have order. Surprise! So your democracies who brings forth these gangsters and gives these gangsters top of the line sophisticated weapons, these gangsters go after weaker targets and eliminate it. They don't go after Russia or China because they're too big, but the gangster doesn't mind pushing around the weak targets to extort money from them. That's why, Uncle Sam's managers never pick a fight with China, or up to now they weren't willing to pick a fight with Russia, because I guess some of the gangsters had a little brain upstairs. These folks have they're full gangster with no, who becomes a gangster, for heaven's sakes? Somebody who can become a judge doesn't become a gangster, becomes a judge. Somebody who can become a mathematician doesn't become a gangster because he can become a mathematician. Gangsters are basically those who can't really become anything else. They're good at sales. They can't really know other skills. They become gangsters. They extort money from other people's work. They enjoy feeling big, feeling in charge. They enjoy, the last time, Mr. Trump actually, bragged about having a chocolate cake with a president of China, while he has ordered a missile strike in Syria. And I was wondering that he was saying this as a brag, that the chocolate cake was very good. I ordered missile strike, and I told President Xi that I ordered a missile strike. This is happening while we are eating this chocolate cake, delicious cake. Who does that? Somebody who enjoys being a gangster, and a population who like a gangster in charge. and likes because they feel insecure. Who made them feel insecure? Your media. You know, I'm sorry, if from tomorrow morning, if media decides that they want to, you know, share with you the Russian news. Tomorrow morning, imagine NPR says, okay, from today we're going to allow 1 hour of Chinese news, the news that the Chinese news agency provides to their people, news of the world. We're going to have 1 hour of Chinese news and 1 hour of Russian news programming in English. These are all state medias, just like NPR is a state media, just like VOA is a state media, just like Radio Free Europe is a state media. If a state is paying for the fucking thing, or if the state is not, some really rich actors, rich people, rich entities are paying for this media to say something. Who's paying for it? And who's managing it? You know, maybe it's public radio and, you know, they try to collect something from people, but, you know, who's managing it? Who's running the show? Who's providing that perspective? Have you noticed that none of these want to have any other perspective being broadcasted except their own? So they're like, no, we don't want to hear what the Russians' perspective, we don't want to hear the Chinese perspective, we don't want to hear the Iranian perspective. What we do want to hear is the Israeli perspective. How does our colony feel about that? It's sort of like, all you need to know is my view and my wife's view. Forget about everybody else. But my point is this, the technology is there. The technology of pinpointing individual from air and following them, at least for 24 hours or multiple days, on the map, and therefore finding their location, where is their major hangout, that would be their home, and then striking them at night in their bed. Well, I guess this is not a bad way to go. Because, you know, this earth seems to be like a prison colony. Everybody is in a way paying for something on earth with regards to, everybody's paying, everybody's suffering. Come on, in this life everybody's suffering, so in a way you can say everybody's paying. So everybody's suffering, in a way everybody's paying. So it seems earth is a prison colony and we are all, you know, paying with our suffering. Anyway, but the solution is, as long as you leave it to the average Joe keeps picking whoever makes them feel safer. And that's somebody with a protective aura of a gangster. It's sort of like, put me in charge and I give you justice. And one of the ways to give justice is to tell your poor people that, that money that we didn't spend on your education and healthcare and housing, that money, we spend it to hit them brown and black people over there because they're bad people. They don't listen to our demands for extortion money. As soon as they listen to our demand to pay extortion, to pay protection money, i.e. buy missiles from us, buy weapons from us, we don't care what they do after they buy the weapons. For all we care, Saudi Arabia can throw all their tanks in the ocean that they bought from us. In fact, we encourage them not to use those weapons and just buy them, store them for us. And in that way, they're giving us protection money. And whoever doesn't want to give us protection money, no, you cannot protect your own interests. That's why we are here for. We have to protect your interests with our weapons, and they're very expensive. You have to buy it from us and also play nice with our colony called Israel. Or else what? We break your kneecaps. Okay. Sophisticated technology, military industrial complex, marking people with their above head profile, at least for 24 hours, find where they live, locate what floor they live in, and send a missile to their bedroom. You can do that, but do you know of any stable mafia systems? Mafia systems are all about revenge and revenge and revenge and revenge. Especially if you know democracies keep providing these opportunities for mafia figures to rise, because they make average Joe feel safe, and tells average Joe that you have been ripped off. You have been, but the reality is, okay, average Joe, you have been ripped off, but you have been ripped off by the Wall Street, the same people who put this guy in charge. You haven't been ripped off. You have been ripped off by Marion Adelson, the guy who put this guy in charge, the gangster in charge. You haven't been ripped off by the Vietnamese. You haven't been ripped off by the Chinese. You have been ripped off by, the gentleman in charge of Goldman Sachs. Yet, yes, the average Joe, my postman, has been ripped off, but not by the Iranians or the Arabs or the Egyptians or the Afghans or the Chinese or the Russians. My postman has been ripped off by Wall Street. In fact, if there was less money went to Wall Street, my postman's standard of living would raise. It's just that the money keeps changing hand between those who print the money and those who pay this money to their friends to build advanced technology to invade more land. Sorry, no education for you. We have to go over here, try to take control of more real estate. Or we have to go extort more money from more individuals in this planet. Can you imagine? It's like United States being 5% of the world population and trying to control 100% or 95% remaining population of Earth. Dominating. And apparently the plan for domination is that we try to dominate you, and if this leadership that is currently in charge if this leadership doesn't want to be dominated, we're going to kill this leadership with surgical strikes with our latest technology until we get a new group of leaders, and if they agree with our demands, pay us extortion money and give up protecting yourself and basically become our wife. If you agree to becoming our wife or our girlfriend, we let you live. And if this new group of leadership, if they also don't agree, we kill them as well. And then the new group of leadership, well, eventually, before you get a group of leadership that agree to bend over, before that, you're going to get chaos. Long before that, you're going to you kill enough leaders that you basically break the whole tribe apart, because then the leadership becomes really regional because you have killed all the federal leaders. Basically, imagine all the federal leaders in a federal country, all the federal leadership are gone. Something happens, they're all gone. What happens? The country basically falls apart government becomes regional. All the states will take over control of their own state, and then is a toss-up whether they still want to get together, form a single country, or they want to go their own way, or different groups of them form different new unions. But the idea is, in the best case scenario, you won't have the original form if you break the chain of command at the federal level. What is this? And this is what I'm saying, that this is destructive. Different tribes on your planet do their best to evolve, to unify and form an order, and your objective is like, okay, now you have formed the order, but you're subject to our order, or we're going to kill you. And when you're subject to our order, you agree to live in the Stone Age, in terms of self-reliance. You agree to not to be self-reliant. You agree to live in the Stone Age with the kind of technology that Egypt is allowed to have. And it was funny that I just saw a video in which some European white people have, Egyptians don't allow their own people to protest. Some Egyptian leadership, those leaders who have agreed with Uncle Sam's managers, because those people who didn't agree were killed. It works the same. It has worked everywhere the same. It's like the leaders that don't agree with us, we kill them. Some of them, Chavez, with chemicals and radioactivity, and he dies of cancer. And some of them, like the Iranian cocksuckers, with surgical strikes, which, after they were marked by the Saudi defense minister's visit. You can do that. You can try to run a gangster shop, a gangster territory like that, but gangsters are not as beloved as you have been led to believe, even in their own communities. Gangsters are rarely loved figures, because they're usually in the business of extortion from the majority and protection for a minority. They provide protection really for their own gang and their own families, and it's about extortion from the majority. And does it ring any bell? Extortion from the majority of the planet for the benefit of a minority that would be the 10% upper echelon of the pinkskins. Extortion from the majority and protection for a minority. Rich, upper class, white people. I'm sorry, Mr. John Stewart, every time you're going to get a gangster, because the average man feels unsafe, insecure. How many secure people do you know? How many people do you know who feel very secure, who feel, they don't need a big house and a big Ferrari, and if they can buy it, if they can get it? How many average men do you know who are hook, line, and sinker for a pretty ass and a pretty Ferrari and a pretty big house, and get all the goodies that they can get in life? And this is average man. Average man worships the image of the gangster, not the reality of the gangster, because every time the average man gets fucked by the gangster. But the average man loves the image of a gangster. Average man likes that's another reason average man goes to the boxing matches and UFC fights and CFC fights and WWE fights and WWF fights, watches them, because the average man just likes somebody to take charge and beat the shit out of anybody who doesn't listen to sense. That's your average man. He's supposed to choose a leader, If you leave it out the average man will choose the most sadistic leader he can find, because that's the average man for you. You vote for something that makes you feel secure. And if you have been made feel very insecure by the same people who present you with a gangster as a leader, it's the same people who are scaring you, who scare the masses. They scare the masses, and then they provide a gangster as a potential leader, and the masses bite the bait and pick the gangster as leader, and they think, okay, this gangster is going to bring peace and prosperity. How many gangsters do you know bring peace and prosperity in their wake? How many gangsters do you know bring peace and prosperity in their wake? And every one of your presidents have been chosen based on their gangster qualities, the quality that makes average Joe feel safe. Every one of them have been chosen based exactly on that quality. You know, the only thing to fear is fear itself. That's a gangster quality. Gangsters have very high tolerance for fear and excitement and adrenaline. Oh, very high tolerance. That's the tolerance that Mr. Trump showed during the assassination attempt. That's the kind of, that all that showed during his reaction in the assassination attempt, all it showed was Trump is a gangster. You expect a gangster to behave in such a way. In fact, if the gangster behaves in such a way, he's respected more. He has shown guts. I'm sorry, peace and prosperity happens only if members of the chess club is chosen as president. I don't see any average man voting for any chess club member. And every time the average man chooses a gangster, expects a chess player, but because again, the average man doesn't feel safe with a chess player. In fact, they should feel the safest with a chess player, but they don't. That's why democracy never works. Eventually you get a series of gangsters, and one more gangster than the other. You don't look at Benjamin Franklin and see a gangster there, but you look at Biden and see Whitey Bulger. You look at Trump and see, Al Capone, as he likes to compare himself with. But, none of the, founding fathers of the United States were gangsters. None of them. They were all, academics. They could speak, they could talk, they could read, they could write. They have written many books themselves, not the ghostwriter. Not the ghostwriter. A gangster also have autobiographies, but guess what? He was able to pull it together to talk into a recording device 10 minutes a day, because even that was too much, because the gangster likes to, be out there, do things. They like to sit down and talk or read. I'm sorry, but democracy will never work. Ever. Just like monarchy doesn't work. Ever. So unfortunately, yeah, no. A series of gangsters until eventually what happens in democracy is the last gangster is is least competent of a series of gangsters, and eventually the thing goes belly up, and you start this cycle again. But the founding fathers also, the idea that who has the right to vote has always been a series of, they considered only the educated and the intelligent rich white, southern men, or rich white landowners have the right to vote again, so they can vote for a gangster to become in charge, to conquer more land, and eventually they sold the same idea down the line through media. They made it in such a way so the average people who don't win or lose anything for any kind of activity that happens outside of their little town, the media makes them concerned for the Houthis, makes them concerned with the Houthis and the Iranians, and therefore let's send our tax dollars over there to, have our gangsters shoot their gangsters and break their orders. So I guess with less order, we're going to feel more safe. Everybody feels more. Does anybody feel any more safe when you break other countries' orders? They have an order, you tell the leadership, you agree with our demands or we eliminate you. They don't agree, you eliminate them, and they eliminate and eliminate and eliminate until you reach full disorder. And as an alien on this planet, I'm looking at this, I'm saying that who's benefiting from? Nobody benefits from bringing disorder where there is order. Who benefits from, either my way, or I destroy your order, I destroy your civilization and send you back to the Stone Age? Who benefits from that? Does your planetary system benefits from bringing disorder where there is order by eliminating the leadership and eliminating the industry and eliminating the culture, eliminating the ports and airports and industrial this and industrial that? By eliminating this, are you improving their lives? Are you bringing more order to your planetary system? Or are you bringing less order to your planetary system? Now nobody talks about Libya because Libya has fallen into disorder, and apparently that's just perfectly fine with us in London, Paris, and New York. We can tolerate a Libya in the Stone Age. What we can't tolerate is a Libya who doesn't want to pay protection money. To Whitey Bulger.